Hogwarts Legacy is a game about how wizarding school is hard, and being a student of the magical arts, you might have a few questions once you've started it up, like, why is my inventory filling up so fast, and what can I do about it? Or, my character looks like they put on everything in their wardrobe in the morning. Is there an easy way to fix that? We're here to help you out with things we wish we knew going into Hogwarts Legacy. You might be tempted to rush out into the open world to unlock all kinds of things, and you can, but you should know that the most important things are unlocked by going to class and following the main story, like the Room of Requirement, spells that you'll need for puzzles inside and outside of Hogwarts, and Broom Flight. The story can unfold pretty slowly, and playing at a reasonable pace, it might take you 2 to 3 days to get to some of the game's main mechanics. So just take your time, go to class, unlock spells, and then when you do run across the many puzzles in the world, you'll be equipped to handle them on the spot. If you do ditch class to explore the open world before you get Broom Flight, there is fast travel for places you've already visited, but you'll have to slog it on the ground to get there, which can definitely be inconvenient. That's not to say you can't do this and enjoy it. There's a lot of gear to find and even quest-specific challenges to accomplish before you even start those quests, making them shorter later on. But do expect some guff from teachers about it.
Don't forget
My studies. Yes, sir.
One thing that will quickly become clear when you start playing Hogwarts Legacy is that your inventory space is pretty limited, like very limited. You'll have 20 total gear slots to begin with, and this is for all of your gear. That might not sound bad until you realize that Hogwarts Legacy is a loot-heavy game. You'll quickly find yourself selling or destroying about half of your inventory on a regular basis. But don't worry, the solution comes via the most famous wizard of all time, Merlin. Eventually in the game, you'll be able to unlock Merlin's trials, and by completing a number of these, you'll finish challenges in your quest book. Doing that lets you increase your inventory size by 4 spaces at a time. Here's how to do it. First, you'll need to progress far enough in the story. I don't want to get too far into spoilers, so I'll simply say that the story mission you need to finish involves the restricted section of the library. This will unlock a quest in Lower Hogsfield. Once you finish that, you'll hear a scream, which starts a chain of events involving Nora Treadwell. If you help her out, this will start the Merlin's Trials quests. All the locations will now appear on your map, and you'll be able to go and complete them. For solving these various puzzles, you'll finish a trial. Once you finish 2 of these, head to your quest log into the Exploration tab. This is where you'll have to manually unlock your rewards, which in this case is more gear slots. Complete more of these trials for more gear. It's basically just a gameplay loop from here on out. One thing to note is you can't actually access this until you get far enough into the story, as we mentioned before, notably the restricted library mission. Trust me, we tried. And there are some fun missions on that same location, just not the one you're looking for. Additionally, in order to even do these trials in the first place, you'll need Mallowsweet leaves. Keep an eye out for them. While you'll get some simply for helping Nora, after you run out you can purchase these at Hogsmeade for fairly cheap, or buy the seeds at Hogsmeade and plant them to keep growing sets of 5 for free once you've opened up the Room of Requirement. Until you do unlock Merlin's Trials, and even after, you'll notice your collection of gear quickly ramping up. So here's a question. Every piece of gear you find will have a designation with it. It could be well-appointed, superb, extraordinary, or it could even be legendary. These designations not only affect the sell value of the gear, but also quickly tell you how many upgrade slots it has, and what the trait slot level is. Well-appointed equipment can't be upgraded, while legendary equipment has a trait slot level of 3, and can get 3 upgrades. So whether you want to keep or toss this stuff has a lot to do with what you want to do later in the game, particularly gear crafting at the loom. Collecting and even selling this gear still unlocks both skins and traits that you can use later, so there's really no harm in doing it. But if you want to min-max your gear, holding on to the gold stuff means that you can do most of the upgrading when it becomes available. This one just depends on your playstyle. Something to note here is that you might not need to min-max your gear if you're playing a normal difficulty. At that level, the combat is pretty manageable. So this could be more aimed at players who want to crank up the challenge and then, min-max their stuff later on. At some point in the game, you'll find the quests The Elf, the Knapsack, and the Loom. Congratulations, you've started down the path of upgrades. Your ability to upgrade gear at the Loom has to do with a few things: beasts you catch and take care of, which give you materials, traits that can be applied to your gear that are found on loot or earned through challenges, and having high enough level gear, as we just mentioned, to be able to accept those traits. If gear upgrades are right for you, get to catching beasts as soon as possible. Head on over to Brook and Peck, outside of Hogsmeade, to sell those animals once your inventory gets full. Keep in mind this is at the top of the map and is actually really easy to miss when you're looking at Hogsmeade. Then keep checking your challenges combat section, which will also award you with new gears and traits to put on outfits, but as we said before, you need to manually unlock these by clicking on them. While the gear throughout Hogwarts Legacy is fun, and there's plenty of ways you can play around with your fashion, a lot of it is something, to say the least. If you want your character to look massively overdressed, that's totally cool. We're not here to judge you on your fashion sense. At the same time, you might be tempted to play the game without looking like that, but before you figure this part out, you're going to be looking interesting because you're going to be mixing and matching the best gear with the best traits. So there's good news. It's actually super easy to customize your outfit and oddly missable. Head into your gear menu, and from here, before you go into customizing exactly which piece of gear you're wearing, you can click an alternate button to change your appearance. From here, you can change any piece of clothing you're wearing to look like any other piece of clothing you've already collected. This also includes special outfits like the Dark Art set from the pre-order bonuses, or general collectible outfits you found in the game, but might not have realized where they went. And fear not, if you sell or destroy pieces of clothing you found, you still have collected it, and you can still use its appearance. Another important thing to note here is you can make your outfit look like nothing. So you can still wear a hat or glasses for stats, but make them invisible cosmetically and gain their bonuses without having to look at them. You can also make your general clothing invisible, which will reveal that you've been wearing long jammies this entire time, because Scotland must be pretty cold during the end of summer. Some side quests are necessary to learn spells that you'll need to actually progress the game, but you won't find them on your map, which can be a bit confusing. You'll have to check the quest menu to see exactly what's needed of you and what your reward will be. For example, Professor Hitcat has multiple assignments for you, and you'll gain a spell reward for completing these. So if you're stuck and can't progress the story forward because you need a spell, it's probably in your quest lists. There's a very good chance that you get the option to spend talent points before you really know what your style is. It's okay to wait until later to spend them. Some of us on staff went all in on dark arts, but there are a few other standout abilities to consider while you're figuring out what kind of witch or wizard you want to be. Under core, the swift talent not only gives you a much better dodge, but it can also save you time when traversing long dungeon areas. Under core, you'll also want to add a few points into spell knowledge, which allows you to add more quick groups of spells to your casting menu, meaning you don't have to constantly swap in new spells during combat. Another great one once you've had a broom is to expand the range of Revelio, because you can scan almost an entire location while in flight, and even pick up some resources on the ground without getting off your broom. There are a few things that can make you better at combat early in the game, especially while you're learning. For starters, even though you can swap spells to different button mappings, it helps a lot to keep your first two spells, Accio and Leviosa, in the same spot to build muscle memory. Each one will break a different colored enemy shield type. And speaking of shield types, if you go out and explore the world early in the game, you'll run across enemies with red shields before you have red spells to break them, such as Incendio. But you can use Disillusionment, an invisibility spell, at any point, even mid-combat, which will often cause enemies to drop their shields and go look for you, opening them up to attack. You could also go invisible to heal or just reposition. It doesn't always work, but it often does. Finally, and this is a bit more of an exploit, but you can use high ground and ledges to full advantage. Accio enemies near a cliff, then do a 180 and push them off the ledge, or just use high ground to pull enemies one at a time. Later on, you can learn some pretty devastating attack combos. If you want to go the herbology route, a lot of plants are basically grenades, like the Mandrake, which is a flashbang grenade, and chopping cabbages, similar to bouncing grenades from Borderlands. If you're looking for Mandrake seeds to grow yourself, Dogweed and Deathcap just outside of Hogsmeade is your spot, after you open up the Room of Requirement. Again, as mentioned in the other shops, it's at the edge of the Hogsmeade map and easy to miss. When onboarding this game, there's a ton of info thrown at you, and some critical things are just easy to miss. For example, the Flue Powder Network looks like you can just walk up to it and use it, but it took me way too long to realize the in-world representation of it is just for show, and you only use the network from the overworld map. Could have just been me that missed that, but do what you will with it. Unfortunately, if you want to buy a broom right off the bat, you can't. The store that sells these in Hogsmeade is locked. But have no fear, you can unlock the doors to flying freedom by progressing far enough in the main story. You're going to be noticing a theme here. Right after the flying intro mission, go to Hogsmeade's very own shop and buy one. They're a bit expensive, so remember that bit earlier where we recommended you sell your gear constantly. Do that. When you finally get to the Room of Requirement, you'll discover the main currency is Moonstones. Pick up a lot of them because that room is huge, and there's a lot of things you can put in it. In order to unlock new things that you can put in that room, head on over to Tomes and Scrolls in Hogsmeade. The Room of Requirement is your little home away from home. You can customize and decorate it to your heart's content, but it also serves an important function in your adventure. It's how you grow herbs, brew potions, and identify gear. Think almost like decoding engrams from Destiny. Eventually you'll get a quest from Professor Weasley to check out the Room of Requirement, and she will walk you through all the basics. Once the tutorials are done, you can start growing plants and concocting concoctions. The reason we feel this is so important is because Wiggenweld potions are hard to come by early on. Actually, a lot of things are hard to come by or very expensive if you don't grow them yourself. It's also worth mentioning that you can conjure multiple herbalist stations to grow multiple plants at once. Just make sure you purchase seed packets from the Magical Neep and some fertilizer if you want to increase your yield. So that's what you should know by about mid-game, and we're still finding a lot more as we go. Like you can pull out your broom quickly if you're falling to keep yourself alive. Let us know what fun things you didn't know going into the game. And thanks for watching.
Hogwarts Legacy is developed by Avalanche Software, a subsidiary of Warner Bros. Interactive Entertainment. The game has been embroiled in controversy due to transphobic remarks from Harry Potter author J.K. Rowling. Although she is not personally involved with its development, she stands to profit from its success. For more on this, please see this video's description for a link to our in-depth article on how Rowling's comments have impacted the trans community. In this article, you will also find links to trans creators you can support, as well as charities you can donate to.